Navigating Australia's visa system. Wow, it can feel like a total maze, right? Especially if you're waiting for a permanent partner visa and you just want to bring your child to Australia to be with you. Well, the Subclass 445 visa is the key. Today, we're going to break down the official government process into a super simple step-by-step guide. Let's dive right in.
Here's the plan. First, we'll get straight on what this visa actually is. Then we'll walk through the big stages, getting all your documents together, actually lodging the application, what you need to do while you're waiting, and finally making sense of that final decision letter.
So, first things first, what is the Subclass 445 visa? It's actually designed for a very specific and, let's be honest, a very important job.
Okay, at its heart, think of this as a temporary bridge. It's all about keeping families together. We all know a permanent partner visa can take a really long time to process. So this visa lets a dependent child come and live in Australia with their parent during that waiting period. It's an absolutely crucial piece of the puzzle for family migration.
All right, now for what is probably the most critical part of this whole thing, your documents. Getting this step right is the absolute foundation of your application. So let's look at how to build your case piece by piece so it's rock solid.
The very first stack of papers you'll need is all about proving who the child is. Legally, officially, no questions asked. For the Department of Home Affairs, this is the non-negotiable starting point.
And the details here are so important. You're going to need certified copies of the main pages of the passport and a national ID card if they have one. But pay really close attention to those photos, okay? They have to be recent, they have to be exactly 45 by 35 millimeters, and they have to be certified. It sounds like a tiny detail, but getting it wrong can cause huge delays.
Now, if the applicant is 16 years old or older, there's an extra layer to this, the character assessment. This is pretty standard stuff across a lot of Australian visas. It's just to make sure that applicants meet the country's character standards. So this means getting police certificates from every country the child has lived in for a year or more in the last decade. And here's a pro tip. If they need one from Australia, it must be the Australian Federal Police Certificate requested under Code 33. Seriously, a state police check won't cut it. You'll also need any military records and that very detailed Form 80.
Next up, you have to provide the official documents that legally connect the child to the parent who's sponsoring them. It's all about proving that fundamental relationship this whole visa is built on. Usually, this part is pretty straightforward. We're talking birth certificates, adoption papers, that kind of thing. But, and this is a big but, if the child is 18 or older, you have an extra job. You must prove they are still financially dependent on the parent. That's where things like bank statements showing money transfers or rent receipts become absolutely vital.
For any child under 18, we get to a really critical legal step. You've got to have the consent of every single person who has a legal right to decide where that child lives. This is a massive child protection measure, and it's taken very seriously.
The most common way to do this is with Form 1229, or what's called a statutory declaration. But here's the thing that's so easy to miss. That form has to be submitted with a copy of the other parent's photo ID, like their passport or driver's license that clearly shows their signature. Don't forget that part.
Okay, before you send a single thing, just run through this final sanity check. 1. Are all your non-English documents translated? 2. Are all your copies certified? And 3, and this is the big one, are you sending certified copies and not your originals? I cannot say this enough. Never, ever send your original documents. And always, always keep a complete copy of everything for yourself. Whew, you've gathered and prepped everything. Let's get to the next step, actually lodging the application. You know, how and where you submit your paperwork is just as important as what's inside it.
The process itself really boils down to 3 simple actions. First, you fill out Form 918. Second, you pay the application fee, and you have to do that before you send it. And third, you mail the whole package to the right processing center, which is in Perth, Australia.
And this slide is absolutely vital. Look, there are 2 different addresses, one for standard post and one if you're using a courier. The government rules are crystal clear on this. If you send your application anywhere else, or if you try to drop it off in person, it's considered invalid. It just won't get processed. And just in case you haven't heard it enough, here it is again, a direct warning straight from the Department of Home Affairs. They repeat it because it is so important. Never, ever send your original birth certificate or passport. Protect your originals. Only send certified copies.
So, once your application is in the mail, the waiting period begins. But listen,
This isn't a passive process. You don't just sit back and hope for the best. Let's look at what you need to do after you apply to stay in control of things. First, you'll get a letter saying, "Yep, we've got your application." The next move is a really great tip. You can actually link this paper application to an online account. Do this. It lets you track its status, upload more documents if you need to, and just manage everything way more easily than waiting for letters in the mail.
During this waiting period, the responsibility is really on you to keep the department in the loop. Did you move? Get a new passport? You have to let them know. If you realize you made a mistake on the application, don't panic. You can fix it with Form 1023. It's all about actively managing your file right up until a decision is made.
And that brings us to the final step, the outcome. Whether the news is what you're hoping for or not, the decision will come in writing, and it's really important to understand exactly what that letter is telling you. The information you get will be totally different depending on the decision. If it's granted, the letter will have the visa number, the start date, and any conditions. If it's refused, the letter will explain exactly why, and it'll give you information on your rights to a review. Either way, you'll know exactly where you stand. So there you have it, the entire process, laid out step by step, straight from the official source. We've given you the complete roadmap. The only question left is for you. Now that you know the path, what's the very first document on your checklist that you're going to go find?